Voiceover Social.
Hello, you.
Hello.
What are you doing?
I'm sat here recording a podcast.
Excellent stuff. Speaking of which, who are we talking to this month and why are we talking to them?
So we have two guests this month.
Whee!
This month we are talking to Carin Gilfry and Jamie Muffett. Between them, they do all sorts of stuff as well as voicing, but a lot of people will know them from NAVA, which is a fantastic organisation fighting for VO rights and protections, which is ACE. And they also both co-run Vocation and eVocation. And the reason we got them onto our podcast is because we are running some studio surgeries and some brand and website surgeries for eVocation in September. So we thought, why not have a chat?
Why not indeed?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any other exciting news?
There are 2 or 3 bits of exciting news, actually. So the first very exciting news is we have a new social.
Oh,
Woohoo!
hooray.
So we have had some lovely volunteers set up the Hearts, Beds and Books social. So that is happening in September in Hemel Hempstead, their first one. There is a Facebook group set up for anybody that wants to join that as well. And if you're local to that area or you visit that area, that would be, I'm sure they would absolutely love you to pop along and celebrate their first ever social in September.
And that very first social in Hearts, Beds and Books is on Wednesday, the 4th of September at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Is there any other exciting news?
So the other exciting news is that we have had an offer for someone looking to set up a social. So we already have one social out of the UK in Berlin, but we want to see if anybody is listening that's based in around Cologne. There's one guy who is over there and is very keen to set up a group, but would obviously like some people to set it up with. Whether you're helping out with the group or whether you just want to pop along and go to the social, if you get in touch with us, either through our website or message us somehow, all the details are on the show notes or on our website. Get in touch and we will put you in touch with them and let's see if we can get another social going.
Amazing, amazing. And any other exciting news?
I'm sure you know. The last bit is actually when this goes live, we should, if all goes to plan, should have landed in Dallas, Texas for One Voice USA.
Oh.
Woohoo! So if any of you are listening over in the States or you're heading over there, do come and say hello to us. We are sponsoring One Voice US as well as UK, and we will be there with our expo stand. If it arrives and the plane, it doesn't get lost in the baggage. So we'll either be there with our stand or with a very hastily last-minute made expo stand.
Well,
either way, come and say hi.
Yes, come and say hello. And I think that's just about all the excitement I can handle today. So let's crack on with the interview.
Yay. We're going to let you introduce yourselves then. So, Rob, are you all ready to...
Yeah. Well, I'm already rolling, so...
Oh, very well. There we go. In which case, would you say hello to Carin and to Jamie, and would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yes, I'm Carin Gilfry. I am a voice actor. I live in Southern California with my family. I've been a voice actor for about, maybe 12 years now? 14 years, maybe 12 years. I'm also the vice president of the National Association of Voice Actors, NAVA, and I am the co-chair of the Vocation conference with Jamie.
Hello, I'm Jamie. I'm the aforementioned Jamie, and I live just north of Philadelphia, sort of halfway between New York and Philadelphia, and I've been here coming up on 15 years, and July marks my 15th year in voiceover too. So this is when we're recording it right now. So,
happy anniversary!
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a journey. And yes, I'm co-chair of Vocation with Karin, and I'm very happy to be on the advisory board of NAVA as well. And just navigating this industry day by day, figuring it all out.
How did you get into VO initially? Sort of both similar kind of length of time by the sounds of it, about 15 years. I mean, was it a purposeful decision, a natural, happy discovery, or a bit of both?
I started as an opera singer.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. I have 2 degrees in opera from USC and Juilliard, and then I worked as an opera singer for a few years professionally and had some, good success. but opera was just kind of killing me and sucking the life out of me. It's basically like being a professional athlete or a professional ballet dancer, where you have to be on top of your game at all times, in top form, perfect, at all times. And I just didn't like it. Once I got into the professional world and out of the school world, it was just so intense. And I had a friend who was narrating audiobooks as well as being an opera singer. And he kind of showed me the ropes. I took a bunch of classes and I dove in headfirst and absolutely loved it. I was also living in Switzerland at the time. And so the world of voiceover was open to me because of these online casting sites. I eventually moved to New York and then LA, but that's pretty much how I got started.
Well, I came to it from music as well, but not from a performance standpoint. I was an engineer and producer working in the studios side, so similar to Rob. And my wife is American, and we had planned to move to New York in 2009, and that was the plan. And I was trying to grow my production career in New York. I had a few connections. I sort of, dipped my toe in the water. But before we left, I was like, well, maybe I should try voiceover. I got a British accent. Maybe, I don't know, try and wring as much out of that as I could possibly. And so I had the recording gear, and I was just like, well, let's try it. So I recorded some awful demo, which we actually played on our podcast one time. It was excruciating. It was so horrible.
You could just remind me what episode that is, and then we'll.
I think it's called demos.
Oh, I've forgotten. I can't remember.
We could put it in the show notes.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah, and here it is now. No. So I just did that in my living room. I just pulled a few books off the shelf, pulled a magazine out, made up some script and just put it on an online casting site, kind of like Karin's situation. And within a week, 15 years ago today, I booked a gig.
Amazing.
And I was like, wow, that's easy. Little did I know that's not how it really works. But it was kind of how it worked a little bit for a while. I put my demos up there and I was booking fairly frequently. So when we moved to New York, I just unpacked my computer, set up my mic. My wife and I were living in this tiny little room, so it was kind of a booth almost with all our stuff in it. And I just sort of went from there, and that's how it all sort of kicked off. And, it was good being in New York because I could go to castings and, record from home and do the online stuff as well as the in-person thing. So that's how it sort of grew for me.
You've never been, therefore, I'm guessing, a voiceover in the UK. Do you get a lot of work from over here, or is it all kind of American with a Brit accent?
I started in the UK, so technically I have worked in person in the UK for I started in July and we moved in November. So the first of 5 months were really in the UK. But I mean, it was online, so it could have been anywhere really. I would say it's about 60-40 US work. I do a lot of UK work still. Okay. Again, just people finding me, and I don't necessarily... The fact that I'm in the US is beneficial for US clients, but it can also be beneficial for the UK as well, if they're getting scripts in late and I'm still working and, things like that. So the barriers have come down a lot, really. So the one barrier that still remains is getting represented in the UK. Agents are not interested. But, yeah... Everything else is, yeah.
So how did you two first meet then? How did you get together in terms of work and cook up the idea of a conference?
I feel like I don't remember our origin story 100%, but I do remember.
Well, Tim introduced us.
Yeah, Tim Friedlander introduced us, but I had never met Tim either. But I think so. What happened was I started a group called Voice Actors of NYC in New York.
Okay.
And Jamie had a group in Philadelphia of voice actors. And Philadelphia and New York are only about an hour away from each other on the train. And so Jamie was in New York and he said, hey, would you like to meet me for, a coffee or something like that in the middle of the day? And I said, sure. And Tim said, you guys should really meet and get together. And I think we went to a Belgian pub. Did we go
Yeah,
to
that's
something
right.
like that?
Next to the Lotus Studios,
we had French fries, and then at the same time, Jamie said, "Hey, I'm on my way to a session, but this studio, you really need to meet the owners. They're wonderful people." And so he brought me with him over to Lotus Productions, which is a beloved studio in New York City. They're awesome. We love them, and I got to meet them on the same day. But Jamie actually came up with the idea. I was doing a ton of classes in New York anyway, and we both thought, well, wouldn't it be a great idea to have a conference in New York because there is no conference in New York City? And we thought, but what can we do to make our conference different from the other conferences that are out there in the industry? And Jamie said, I think that it should be just business. So everything, the Vocation conference is all things just voiceover business related. We don't do any performance coaching, but we teach people about agents and about, forming a company and getting new work and direct marketing and the different genres of voiceover just from the business side, how to find work, how to get work, how to best, retain your clients, et cetera, et cetera, and not performance. So that's kind of how it came about.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly something that we've noticed that the conferences that are there are great, and I love going to the ones that we have been to. They're so much fun. But yeah, there does tend to be a lean towards the performance and the kind of art of being a voiceover, when actually so much of running or being a voiceover is the business side, and it's not always the bit that anybody actually wants to do. Let's face it.
Absolutely.
I can't imagine most people have a burning desire to do their accounts
Yeah.
when they're a voice or any creative. I mean, I certainly don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the eating your vegetables of voiceover,
Yes.
isn't it? Like doing all the business side, and we're sort of like a vegetable only conference.
You're selling it really well.
Yeah, I know.
So I had an idea a couple of years ago. I said, business is a really dry topic. So why don't we have an in-person conference in a tropical destination?
does increase the appeal.
And so
That's a
we ended
brilliant
up
idea.
doing. Yes. So we ended up doing we've done 2 so far. The first one that we did was last year in Cancun, Mexico, and that was really fun, Vocation Cancun. And then this past April, our conference was in Costa Rica. And that was so fun. The conferences, the in-person conferences take place at an all-inclusive resort. And so you pay one price, and that's all you pay. You get there, you can eat and drink whatever you want, and we have activities and fun stuff. And so you do business during the day, and then you just have fun the rest of the time.
I mean, it does sound good. So there's, I have to say, I thought there'd been more conferences than that. I'm kind of surprised that there's only been 2.
The destination ones, there have only been 2, but this is our ninth conference now, Jamie.
I was going to say.
Yeah, ninth.
We've done 4
in person and virtual.
Yeah, we've done 4 in person, 2 in New York, 2 in tropical destinations, and 4 online.
Cool.
And the online ones are great because, if you can't afford to travel to one of the major voiceover conferences, it's great to have an online option.
Absolutely.
And so that's why we have eVocation as well.
And the content being business focused, it really lends itself to online. It's quite easy to present that information on a Zoom call in a session, in a meeting.
Yeah.
And, sharing screens and presentations and, what have you. And we combine that with the community aspect of it as well, as much as we can, to make it feel like you're attending a social event, but with all the benefits of being at home. We're surrounded by your stuff in your studio, working on your website while you're listening to a presentation on the website, or doing some marketing while you're interacting with people. You can sort of do it there and then. So, there are downsides to a virtual conference, but then there are also upsides. You can actually implement stuff straight away.
Yeah.
How much of the online conference is kind of going to be relevant to an international community? Because obviously every country has its own legal aspects of running a business. So, for us, for example, as Brits, if we were to want to come along to the virtual conference, I'm sure there will be things that we can still take notice of. But how much of it is going to be totally relevant to us, and how much are we going to have to kind of filter through British law?
I think it's pretty much all transferable.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I do a lot of work with the UK, and my business practice doesn't change really a huge amount, whether it's the UK, whether it's the US, whether it's, Guatemala or whatever. How I market myself, how I operate my business is the same. Obviously, there are specific like tax things or, like you mentioned, legal things that are very specific to different countries. But in terms of operating a business and growing your own career and your brand as a voice actor, I think there's a huge amount of crossover.
Sure.
I mean, almost, 1-to-1, I would say. What would you say, Karin?
And also because we live in a global industry now, even if you live in the UK, you can absolutely work in the US. And anything that we talk about that's purely US based, you can just, put in the bucket of this is what I do when I work in the US.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty much all transferable.
We can't not have this chat with you guys without talking about NAVA as well. I think it's such a big part of who both of you are, and why, again, actually fits beautifully into the Vocation, eVocation kind of business side of the conference as well. But for those people who are in the UK who might not necessarily know they've probably heard of NAVA, but might not know what it does, what the difference is between NAVA and SAG-AFTRA, would you like to just give us a quick overview of where that sits?
I would love to. So NAVA is the National Association of Voice Actors. We are a professional association for voice actors, and we have members all over the world. It's not just in the United States, even though we're called the National Association of Voice Actors. One of the benefits you get from membership, though, is access to a health insurance plan in the U.S. So if you're living in the U.S., you can get access to a health insurance plan, which over here is a really big deal.
Yeah.
So that's a benefit that we worked for a couple of years to get for our members. But essentially, the benefits of membership are you get a free monthly class, and you're part of an organization that is really looking out for you. One of the reasons we formed NAVA is because there are about 160,000 members of SAG-AFTRA, but very few of them are voice actors.
Right.
SAG-AFTRA is very focused on camera because that makes up the majority of their membership. And so we, as an association, not a union, wanted to create a place where the needs of voice actors would be kind of at the forefront. And many of our board members sit on negotiating committees at SAG-AFTRA. Many of our members are members of SAG-AFTRA, and you can absolutely be members of both because we're not a union. We are an association. One of the things that NAVA does is advocate for fair consent, control, and compensation when it comes to AI.
Yeah.
And we are kind of tackling the whole AI debate with a three-pronged approach, and that's education, legislation, and contracts. So education, meaning we're doing a bunch of free events and classes and traveling to conferences outside of Voiceover for developers, software developers, and things like that. Legislation, we are going to Washington, D.C. and advocating for bills that protect your voice, image, name, and likeness, and that, address deep fakes and things like that. And contracts, we, of course, support SAG-AFTRA and everything that they're doing in regards to AI, but also about 80% of the voiceover industry in the U.S. is non-union, so not covered under a SAG-AFTRA contract. And we wanted to have at least something in place for all of the people who are working under non-union contracts, and maybe something for SAG-AFTRA to model some of their contracts on if it turns out that what we have is working and accepted in the industry, which it kind of has been. Mm-hmm. We created the NAVA AI synthetic voice contract writer, which is basically an addendum that you can add to any contract, which says the files that we create for this job are to be used only for this job, and you may not use these sound files to make or train AI. And it has been used in Canada. It's been used in the UK. It's been adopted in other unions kind of as standard in other countries. And it has been widely used and accepted in the US. People who are adding it to their contracts are finding their clients are mostly accepting it. Sometimes they come back and say, oh, we have one or two things that we want to change, or we need to have our legal team review it, and we'll put this language in your actual contract. But it's been really great, I think.
Wow. So that's available to all members of NAVA?
Yes, it's free.
That's
free
amazing.
to download. It's free. It's available to anyone. It's free to download from the website.
So in terms of AI and voices and how they can, other than obviously the contract, which is so important to get in place, I would encourage anybody working on any job to get a contract in place with your VO. But in terms of how people can respond or get involved, or what would be your kind of best bit of advice for people currently working within the voice industry that they should know maybe, or maybe that they don't know, that you want them to know about AI and the kind of the most important ways to protect them and their voice, I guess?
I would say being open about it and having discussions with your clients and your agents about it up front is really, really important. I think in this industry, when we're all kind of scrambling to find work on a regular basis, it seems like whatever they offer you should take. But I think we all have to remember that we have some power and that we have the ability to say no, and that a lot of times clients who want to use your voice for AI don't realize the implications that it has for you and why it's not the greatest thing for you. They don't realize that if you're doing a commercial for Ford, you can't also do commercials for Honda.
Yeah.
They just don't realize that there would even be a product conflict and why it would be a problem if they put your voice into a synthetic voice engine that just exists on a platform somewhere that you don't have control over, that anyone can use for anything. So I think educating your clients, talking to your agents about it, and everyone should read their contracts.
Yeah.
Even if it is a union contract, things can be added to it, things can be taken away from it. And I think it's just important that everyone really, really pays attention to what is happening and has an open dialogue with everyone involved in the job.
Yeah, definitely. And I would add to that in terms of if you're signing up to any of the P2P sites, making sure that you've read their terms and conditions as well, because there are things hidden in these lovely apps and software. And again, like websites and web builders, the training of AI is just embedded into everything. And I think we have to take some responsibility as well for making sure that we understand where we're putting our words, whether that be vocal or whether it be written, that we're not inadvertently training these things, unless, of course, we want to.
One of the interesting differences, though, between, a creative work that someone has made with their own two hands or, something like that, a creative piece of art and your voice is that your voice is actually your biometric data.
Yeah.
So if someone takes a piece of art and they put it into a synthetic art generation engine and it spits out something that looks kind of like the thing that you made, that's awful for that artist, and that probably shouldn't be done either. Mm-hmm. But with your voice, that is something that is unique to you, and voice print is so unique to each individual person that if your mom calls you on the phone from a different number, you pick up the phone and you know exactly who it is in 2 seconds. Yeah. And in the US, I don't know if it's true in the UK, you can access your bank account using your voice print. You say, my voice is my password, and it lets you into your bank account.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that should be protected in the same way that your fingerprint is protected and your iris scan is protected.
Yeah.
And it is in some countries, and it's not really protected in the U.S. So we have an uphill battle, I think, when it comes to that.
Yeah, it's like you say, it's scary if you sound like a perfect vocal representation of somebody, either what you could end up selling inadvertently that it would be instantly associated with yourself, but also the access to things like bank accounts and God knows what. I mean, there are already scams going around with people being phoned from people who say or use phrases that are supposedly a family member and desperate for money. Please send me this, that, the other over, and bye a few grand.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's already happening, which is scary.
I think also when it comes to working with clients, I think everyone's in this process of trying to figure out AI. So any creative industry, really any industry that isn't like a service industry where you'll literally have to be a place and do a job, is trying to figure this out. So I think sometimes when you're working with a client and you send the AI rider or you just question a line on a contract, it sort of snaps them out. Oh yeah, no, of course. Yeah, it's just, we get it. We're dealing with this. Like classically video production, they're potentially all out of a job if AIs can just do it. You can type it in and you can get a video for free, like in 3 seconds. So everyone's dealing with it and everyone's sort of trying to negotiate this weird landscape that's constantly shifting. So I think there's an element of trying not to get too paranoid about it and be practical and also understanding that the people that we're working with are also trying to navigate this new world,
And also, I have a couple of synthetic voices that exist that I have control over, and they work for me when I am not working. So it's a nice source of passive income. And as far as our voices being stolen, it's the same. To me, it's the same as every time I enter in my credit card info on a website. I don't know where it's going or who has access to it. There are thousands and thousands of hours of my voice out in the world, on the internet, accessible to anyone. And there is absolutely no way that I can protect every single sound file that has ever been created of me. And it's just a matter of, why would they choose me over anyone else? And maybe someday a scammer would choose me over somebody else, but you just deal with it as it comes, and you can't live your life in total fear. You just have to have education.
So I guess kind of going back to kind of the business of voiceover, we've got two people here who are obviously making a success of income. You're feeding your families and, you're supporting the voiceover industry as well. So in terms of business tips for either a new or an experienced, in fact, actually it'd be great if you've got something for both. We go for new people or people looking to start in the industry. What would be your kind of business advice for those people who are newer at VO or looking to get into the industry?
I think for me, you should really diversify where you're getting your information. You don't just have one sort of guru like being your guide. It's great if someone takes you under their wing a little bit, but even then, I would say you still have to diversify, because your journey starting in 2024 is going to be very different to the person starting, for example, us 15 years ago. So, we try and bring people in for the conference, for example, who started a long time ago and have got this, wealth of experience, but also people who started more recently, because they bring something different to the table. And I think speaking in generalities here, not just for the conference, but for all your education, I think trying to source that sort of broad spectrum of knowledge is going to really help you figure out what works for you in your situation. So, for example,
I love that.
Your age, your voice age, the genre that you're interested in. Are you looking after an elderly parent? Do you have financial there's a million different scenarios there that influence how you are going to be able to attack this industry. And so when you're starting out, I think, it's painful because it feels like you're just throwing so much stuff at the wall, and it just takes forever to get that, for it to start coalescing into a knowledge that a knowledge base that sort of you kind of get a sense of where you're at and where you could go. And so, but stick with it. It takes a while for that to sort of come together. I think for people who are in the industry, one thing I would say is don't forget who you are as an individual. Don't necessarily be influenced by what you think you should be doing based on other people, and sucking all the individualities and the quirks about who you are out just in seeking being a professional, quote unquote, and I'm doing the air quotes thing right now for listeners. Those two things, I think, for when you're in it, try and be you at every opportunity, and when you're starting, diversify your education.
I have two pieces of advice, and I think they go for everyone. Number one is, I have found in my career that the amount of effort that you put in directly correlates to your level of success. And that is true of absolutely anything. That's true of learning a new instrument. That is true of exercising. That is true of, just learning a new skill. And it's true of voiceover as well. The effort that you put in directly relates to your success. And if you're just doing this kind of part-time and for fun, then you'll probably get part-time and for fun results. When I started, was putting in hours and hours and hours and hours of work, auditioning and, working on audiobooks basically for free, and learning how to record myself and learning how to use text, so that after about 2 years of doing this job almost completely full time without getting paid for it while I was still babysitting and I had a survival job, after about 2 years, I was finally in a place where I felt like I could reach out to agents and where I could audition for better work, and my effort directly correlated. My second piece of advice is, I think, a pro tip that I learned when I was at Juilliard from my best friend at the time. And she didn't even know that she taught me this lesson, but I just talked to her on the phone the other day and I said, you really taught me something that I share with people now, which is, when you are ready, coach with the people who cast. Because if they offer coaching and you can pay them for their time, that is basically an hour-long audition where you show them your capabilities, how directable you are, how nice you are, and it gets them invested in you as a person and the success of your career. So that when they have something that comes across their desk and they go, oh, I really need a guy in his 40s with a British accent. I just worked with Jamie Muffett. That's right. Let me send this directly to him and he can audition. Or when Jamie's audition comes across their desk, they go, oh, Jamie, gosh, I had a coaching with him a couple months ago. He is so lovely. I'm going to put his audition forward to the client because I really liked him and he would be great to work with. Mm-hmm. When you audition with the people who cast, the chances of them, if they like you, if you're not, bad person, the chances of them advocating for you and choosing you over someone who maybe even had a better audition than you is greater because they know you and they want to work with you. So those are my two pieces of advice.
And people like working with people they like working with.
Yeah.
So it's not just your voice performance that is selling you when you're in the session or whatever, it's how you communicate with people, how quick you are to email people back, and, what you're like in the session, all those kind of things. That all counts in your favor as well. Yeah.
Cool. So if you've got any kind of shout outs for highlights at eVocation that's coming up, the ticket, it's in September this year, isn't it? So for anybody that's umming and ahhing, sitting on the fence, what would be you've got to come because...
Well, it's not just classes and panels, it's a social event as well. And that's something we take a huge amount of pride in. We've got all the classes and panels listed on our site, vocationconference.com. But it's a really social event, and it's weird because it's online, but it feels social. We have not just, like I say, the educational component, but we have like a side Zoom room that's happening concurrently to our main session where people can just go in and hang out, and we call it the cafe. And speakers hang out in there, attendees, of course, people network with each other, they share their demos and get feedback and what have you.
That's cool.
We have a separate Voiceover Facebook group that is just for attendees where people can post, class notes and other things that they've found or research that they've done. They can connect with each other. Oh, and we mail out swag bags.
We do. Even
Nice.
to the UK, we send the swag bags.
Yeah.
A
So you have
physical
something
thing.
physical
You get a
as well.
physical thing in the mail. And often we have like a sign to hold up during the conference.
Yeah.
I used to have one here in my booth, but so that everyone's holding up the same thing at once on our little Zoom
love it.
screens. It's kind of fun.
That is cool. I mean, I certainly agree with the I think because people are so much more used to, one positive of COVID is that people are much more used to being online with each other and in those big group socials. I certainly love joining in with those things. I think they're a lot of fun. There's been some incredibly late nights in the past with online socials. Yeah, they're a great place to meet people.
And it's obviously it's more accessible.
Absolutely.
You don't have to fly anywhere. You don't have to stay in a hotel and all that kind of stuff. You can do it from the comfort of home, which I think is key for a lot of people. Some people have health issues or responsibilities outside of their voiceover career that mean they can't get away. So it's a conference for pretty much everyone that wants to come.
And it's talks are available on playback as well, aren't they? For those of us that will be hitting 4 a.m. for some of your timings.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can get a replay-only ticket. Everyone who buys a regular conference ticket will get access to the replays of all of the sessions.
Cool.
And we also have, in addition to our nighttime networking parties and things, we, as Jamie said, we have our cafe. We have things that happen during the day. During the lunch break, people hang out and have fun networking time together, and it's a fun time.
That's cool. It does sound fun. Thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Panic room.
My question was going to be about sponge, for want of a better expression. So I've got my new space that I'm just moved into now. The only way that I can kind of go about choosing things is looking at the NRC rating.
Mm-hmm.
And all of my stuff that I've been using for the past few years that everyone has been happy with has been like a 0.9 NRC, which is what like my sponge that I've got to my left and my right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found some very, very pretty stuff, which is now in my space up here.
Okay, yeah.
Which is the hexagons, which are also 0.9 NRC, but are obviously a lot thinner and cuter. And basically, I've started to realize that I haven't posted anything, or I haven't kind of promoted the fact that I'm in a new space, because I feel like I'm nervous about people kind of seeing it and going, look at that old shit, but she's only got some self-adhesive hexagons from Amazon. But I feel like I wouldn't have bought them if I didn't think that they were going to be okay. But yeah, I'm kind of my question is looking at an NRC rating of a particular piece of acoustic whatever kind of an okay approach?
Yes.
Thanks.
Because very often that's the only information you've got.
Yeah.
So when you are looking at products to buy online, the NRC rating is basically the only information you really have. The only other information you sometimes get is if you get if you're buying your foam tiles, you might get like the density and obviously the thickness of the tiles as well. You will get that. But the only other thing is the density of the foam, and obviously the denser, the better.
Yeah.
With foam tiles, but the NRC rating is the thing which you're given more often than not. And certainly if you're comparing your foam tiles to your hexagons, that those dimensions and the density are completely meaningless to compare because they're made from completely different materials.
Yeah.
So the only thing you've got to go on to compare different forms of treatment will be those NRC ratings. And NRC ratings are a little bit funny because a lot of places will give you that overall rating, like you've got the 0.9, but more comprehensive results might show quite a different result.
Yeah.
So the overall rating might be not 0.9, but they will have kind of tested at different frequency bands.
Yeah.
And whether those are published as well, very often they're not, but sometimes they are. And so you will see quite a difference between the highs and the mids and the lower mids and the low frequencies. Generally speaking, almost always speaking, the high frequencies and the mids are treated much better than the lower frequencies are. Now, the thing with NRC ratings is that the maximum rating is 1.
Yeah.
But when you break things down to that different frequency bands, then sometimes the NRC ratings will come out greater than 1 on a certain frequency band. And I can't remember why that is off the top of my head, but it all kind of contributes to that overall rating.
Yeah,
so
like an average.
Find something with a rating of probably 0.8 actually, but which is doing absolutely nothing kind of at the low end. So that's the only thing I would say is low frequencies and those kind of rumbly bassy noises. the wavelength of those is very long. And so it is generally kind of accepted that you need a thicker material to deal with those lower frequencies. Now, the density has got a lot to do with how well it's going to treat the low frequencies as well. But you need a thick thing to really kind of hammer at those lower frequencies. So the only thing I would say is that 0.9, absolutely fantastic, not a problem with it at all. But you may find that it's not killing the bass quite as well as the foam did.
Yeah.
In which case, you might need to get hold of a couple of little bass traps or something.
Which is why they exist, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's why they.
Okay.
So, I mean, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, as the saying goes.
Yeah, and
so if your acoustic performance is great, if none of your clients are going, have you changed things? Then you're onto a winner.
Yeah, and that's what I'm kind of going on. I kind of, had all of this plan. Helen, I spoke to you that I was like, potentially going to get like new digital this and be like, Dana, here's my new shed that I'm so proud of that it's taken me so long. And then I just haven't. I've worked out this morning in coming to see you guys that it might just be a little bit of a shame thing. Almost I'm like embarrassed to show it off in case people are like, but I shouldn't feel that way because every one of us has got a space that's totally different. And as I say, and I've done a couple of clients so I've done some TV promo stuff, nothing's come back, and I've asked them, I'm like, look, it's new space, if there's issues please let me know. And then the last week I did radio, and I asked them, I was like, look, can you check it? And she was like, I'll listen to it in the studio and I'll turn it up and check if there's any problems, I'll let you know. And they haven't. So now I'm like, well, if the clients are all right.
I have two things to say. First of all, having a listen and kind of checking things over is a service that I do provide. So do get in touch if you actually want to kind of do that and get the reassurance from things that way. Okay. The other thing to say is that there is a lot of snobbery about acoustic treatment and stuff like that. And I am a member of a Facebook group which is run by a bloke who I won't name, who is an acoustic technician. He has more qualifications in acoustics than I could ever dream of. I mean, I've got none, so it's not a very big dream. But he's so unbelievably snobby about anything that doesn't conform to his way of doing things. And he's all about the rock wall panels and things like that. And it's just like, yeah, those are fine. And what he says is absolutely perfectly true in that those are the best way to control your acoustics. But if you're working in a 1 meter by 1 meter box, which I don't recommend, but if you are working in something that small, you can't afford to lose 20 centimeters on every wall. So it's not practical to kind of take that approach. And he'll come out regularly and say, I keep telling people foam does nothing. But actually, when you're out there in the field and you hear a room that hasn't been treated and then you hear a room which has been treated with foam, it makes a difference. And what I learned through going around lots and lots of different studios and prejudging them before I heard them in some cases is that you can't prejudge them because acoustics is a science, but it's also witchcraft. Your most qualified acoustic technician can be surprised by what works when it shouldn't. And I've seen that, with my small amount of knowledge compared with a lot of people with degrees and all the rest of it. When I first started doing the studio visits, I had been in a position of working in a production studio and worked with a lot of voiceovers over ISDN. And I knew that their sound was absolutely fine because I'd worked with them repeatedly over ISDN. And if their studio wasn't up to scratch, we wouldn't have used them. First time I visited, there's a couple in particular that I can think of. I kind of walked into their studio and I was like, what the? But I knew it worked. So don't be paranoid about, you will probably find people who go, they're only bloody hexagons. But screw them, because if you know that your sound is good, then you know that your sound is good. And that's all you need. You need, your regular clients and all the rest of it who come back to you and back to you and back to you because your sound is good. And then the people are going to get sniffy about little hexagons on the wall rather than rock wall panels or foam or whatever.
And the thing is, I do have all of those things as well. They're just not as pretty, so you can't see them because they're down there and behind there. But
no, I mean, it's their problem if they're going to get sniffy.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. It's one of those things, isn't it? Where you're kind of like, especially when you put effort and you're sort of proud of something and then it feels quite exposing to kind of then show it off.
Yeah. But I mean, it's the same with, I do advise people not to list their studio equipment on the website because you're always going to find snobs who go, oh, bloody hell, a U87, is that all they've got? You know, or whatever it is. And you're always going to find gear snobs who just don't like certain brands for some reason. They wouldn't know what microphone you're using if you didn't tell them. So get rid of that snobbery by not telling anybody what you're using.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to the Voiceover Social podcast, hosted by Rob B and Helen B from BEE.
Sponsored by BEE.
Voiceover Social. Thank you to our guests,
Carin Gilfry
And Jamie Muffett.
at vocationconference.com.
And the socials we have coming up are the Bath Social on Friday the 23rd of August, the Belfast Social on Saturday the 24th of August, Hearts, Beds and Books Inaugural Social on Wednesday the 4th of September, the Birmingham Social on Saturday the 7th of September, the Pint and Rabbit Online Social on Friday the 20th of September, the Manchester Social on Saturday the 28th of September, and the London Social on Thursday the 3rd of October.
all audio production by Rob B.
Please like, subscribe and leave a review to help more voiceover people find us.
And if you want to email us, it's listen@thevosocial.com.
See you next month.
The Voiceover Social.